planning on that. Oh, it's the. Alrighty. Welcome to the show 34, episode 3, and welcome. Today's topic, as I has just spun the wheel, is the roll up the rim story. Yes, alrighty. So, as you may know, why? You know what? I just realized yesterday I said that there was only 2 Tim Hortons topics, and yet roll up the rim is actually part of Tim Hortons, so my bad. It's 3, and it's funny because I captioned my post yesterday saying, enough about Tim Hortons already. Well, I'm sorry. I apologize. This might be the last one for a little while anyways. Anyways, as you may know, to win a big prize for Tim Hortons, it is the odds are very terrible. And to win anything, really, the odds are terrible. And I actually only won like 2 coffees this year, and that was about it. It was one of the worst roll-up years in Tim Hortons history, I think. That was just absolutely terrible. Anyways, so this is a story for, let's just talk about many stories, I guess. First of all, this year, my kitchen manager actually was trying to take my coffee because he thought it was his. So I was trying to point out to him that's my coffee and that's your coffee, and I had to tell him that about like 3 times. So he finally understood after he came back from the washroom before he left to go back home after he was done work. And when he did that, he took his last sip of his coffee. He rolled up his rim in front of me, and he won a $50 Tim Hortons gift card. And then he told me, "Don't you wish I would have taken your coffee instead?" And I was like, yes, I really wish I wouldn't have said anything. But anyways, that's the first time I actually see anything besides a food or coffee prize at Tim Hortons. That's probably the biggest thing I've seen in person. It was really interesting to see that. And I got one more story for you, I guess. For the Tim Hortons roll up the rim. Way back in the day, my dad actually worked at a Tim Hortons, and he told me the story when he was a teenager and working at Tim Hortons. Back in the day, they actually had a way to tell which cup was a winner and which cup was a loser, and it was all determined by a small red line at the bottom of the cup. So when my dad was working at the Tim Hortons, he, his buddies would come in, and when his buddies would come in, he would pick the cups with the red lines at the bottom of the cup. That way there, he was always giving his buddies a winning cup of some sort, and you never know, they could have got lucky. And he managed to get away with it for a little while, and then Tim Hortons finally caught on and fired him. That's how I remember the story. That's how I remember my dad telling the story anyway, way back when. This was like a few years ago that he told me. And ever since then, Tim Hortons has also caught on, I guess, because many employees were finding out about this whole thing, so they stopped making their cups that way. And now there is no way for any employee to tell whether a cup is a winning cup or a losing cup. And so that's an interesting roll up the rim story. Many people ask me, if I won the car, would I keep it? And there's only 40 cars every year or something like that anyway. Would I keep the car if I won the car? No, absolutely not. In fact, this is what I would do. So obviously I would win the car. I don't have to buy it. I don't have a license. I don't feel like buying insurance. I'm just not ready. to drive a car. I like having my bike, and I'm going to stick with that. So in order to make a quick buck, and I'm talking about a 30 grand kind of buck, or maybe a 40 grand kind of buck, I will actually sell a car if I win one from Tim Hortons. I will definitely sell it for 30 or 40 grand, considering it is a brand new car. And what am I going to do with that 30 or 40 grand? I am going to see if I can actually find and purchase a food truck that is selling for that price. And usually food trucks that are at that price are used, and I don't mind that. If it's a beater, it is a startup company. It is a startup truck. Make profit, make money, make the almost $500,000 in one weekend, like I was talking about. And speaking about that, I promised I would talk a little bit more about that. So, this is the calculation I came up with the other day. On average, people spend about $50 on food when they go to a restaurant. When I was invited to a food truck festival to vendor, it was the RCMP Music Festival thing that was going on in Whitefish, which is just on the outskirts of Sudbury. But I had to break the news that this was only a high school project Facebook page and whatever else. But anyways, they told me that they were expecting up to 3,000 people a day, and it was throughout a weekend in August of 2018. So I figured, well, 3 days, 3,000 people a day. If all of those 3,000 people were to come to my specific truck at that festival on one day, I would make $150,000 minus expenses in one day. But this festival lasted 3 days, so I did $50 times 9,000 people, because 3,000 people times 3 because of 3 days equals 9,000 people. So 9,000 people are expected to show up at this festival throughout the weekend. If 9,000 people, and it doesn't have to be 9,000, they could actually be people coming back to the truck, right? But if 9,000 people, if I get 9,000 orders in total from that festival, and they all spend at least $50, I will be making almost $500,000 minus expenses, and the expenses don't hurt my 400K point at all. It doesn't damage it. It doesn't dent it. It doesn't make a big dent into the 400K mark. And that's just for one festival. If I do 5 festivals, I calculated that I could be making $2 million a summer. And that is why, after I did the calculations, I was inspired, and I came back from my break on Instagram, and I started posting things again. I started doing this podcast. I bought the microphone for that specific reason, because I realized how much money I could be making if I had a food truck, which I don't have, because first of all, they're expensive. And, sometimes I just wish I could get lucky just so I can get my dream faster. If I could win a car, I'll roll up the rim and sell it for 40 grand and buy a 40 grand food truck. I will do that. If somebody buys me a lottery ticket and I win a big amount of money, I'm going to use that money to buy my food truck. I'm going to do whatever it takes, and I don't care what anybody tells me. And that's one thing that you have to learn in business, is you cannot let people put you down. If you let people put you down, if you let people tell you that you're going to fail, unfortunately, you are going to fail. You have to stop listening to them, and you should never listen to people like that. Get rid of negative people in the business world. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're watching this on IGTV, please click the follow button. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, go check out the Instagram at 34's Flame Huts. This is 34's Flame Hut, the show 34. Have a flaming hot day.